Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video. Hey, what is up guys? ImpulseEvan here, and today I'm bringing you guys another video, and in this video I'm going to be I'm gonna be reacting to Game Theory's newest FNAF theory, which is called FNAF Bonnie's Haunted Past. I've heard a little bit about what he says in this video, but I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll find out, but let's just get started.
A portion of today's episode is sponsored by Delta Force.
Cool.
Let's talk about Eclipse, Sun and Moon, daycare attendant. Whatever you call him, I have one question for you. Why? Why is he here? He was randomly introduced in Security Breach, and sure, he managed to deliver one of the hardest, scariest parts of that game, but really ask yourself,
hardest not really. Maybe the first playthrough, but
is this thing? In a series that doesn't do coincidences, one already full of a core band of
Bobby
animatronics
Dots
with old and new faces, as well as deep cut returns like the Music Man. Why introduce a completely random character completely disconnected from everything else? Honestly, I wasn't sure, and I didn't really talk about him in my theories for Security Breach, but it definitely...
I'll say that obviously Bobby Dots Part 1 explains like the existence of him like canonically, but like what is he? I'm assuming he's asking what it means like lore wise, and well, I think what the main thing is that like what is he meant to represent, if anything. And I feel like what that is basically Vanny and Vanessa. So Vanessa is obviously the light side, the sun, and Vanny is the moon, because they're like a split personality, and one of them's evil, one of them's good, Vanessa and Vanny. So I feel like I've always felt like that's what that's trying to represent, but now with Ruin I'm even more confident about that, because in Ruin we play as Cassie, which is a similar name to Cassidy. Cassidy in Princess Quest frees Vanessa from Glitch Trap. Cassie in Ruin frees the daycare attendant from like the evil, like the moon basically, and turns it good. I feel like that's trying to further like hint at the idea that Sun and Moon are meant to represent Vanessa. And I also should mention that Ruin takes place after the Princess Quest ending, when Glitch Trap is destroyed, meaning that Vanessa is freed. So in the DLC, when Vanessa's already freed, we free Moon, who is a split personality just like Vanessa was. So I've always felt like that's what that's trying to represent, and I think with Ruin that's stronger. But I just want to explain that. I don't know what he's gonna actually say about this, but
definitely bugged me in the back of my mind.
All right.
And now here he is again in Ruin, and not only is he back, he's got more collectibles than literally any other character. 4 masks, 2 pinatas, 2 plushies, and 2 golden plushies.
Yeah, I mean there's 2 of him.
Especially
So
strange when main characters like Roxy and Chica only have like 1 or 2 items tops. What is the deal with this thing? Well, give him a nice close-up look. And now watch the clip of the mimic from the end of the game. You see anything interesting?
the teeth,
It's
yeah.
the teeth. The teeth are the same, each one individually attached and able to articulate itself.
This is actually something that I noticed and I mentioned in one of my theory videos, and some of my friends were telling me it means nothing, it's a reused design, but I'm like, I think it definitely means something, and I have since I realized that. So I'm glad somebody else actually realized that.
Eclipse, in some way, is related to the Mimic.
Yeah.
And knowing how old the Mimic is, step aside there, Chica. Eclipse was the first. He has truly seen everything.
Okay. Probably the jester thing, I'm
Hello,
assuming, is
Internet.
what he's going to talk about.
Welcome to Game Theory, a show that has valid theories, no eggs required.
My theory is the valid theory. Matt Pat can suck an egg.
This one's for you, Mark.
Last time we started digging
That was
deep
fun
into
to
the
watch.
ruins of
48 hours later.
Last time, we started digging deep into the ruins of Security Breach's DLC, where we started to chip away at this game's mountain of mysteries. In the process, we were able to come to a few solid conclusions. First, that Princess Quest was the canon ending, meaning Vanessa was ultimately freed from the control glitch trap, and everyone celebrated the victory by eating oddly symbolic ice creams on a hill. That also meant that this headless Freddy with the word prototype on his foot
probably
was
the real one.
indeed Gregory's Freddy. But perhaps the biggest twist of all was that underneath the rubble, underneath the Pizzaplex in FNAF 6, hid the one and only Circus Baby's Pizza World. This revelation was huge. Not only did it suggest that Circus Baby's has been around since some of the earliest days of the franchise, but I think it also reveals what the true purpose of Ruin is. This game isn't about looking at the future of the franchise, instead, it's all about the past. I believe that Ruin is trying to tie up the loose ends from parts of the franchise we left forgotten. That way, we can move forward with later games.
The thing I have a problem with this is that I don't think that Circus Baby's Pizza World would be under the Pizzaplex, if that's what he means, like, literally, and if he just means that, like, the costumes that are from it, then in that case, I mean, they could be. But the problem I have with that statement is just that Scott, back around when Fazbear Frights was first releasing, said that the books, the Fazbear Frights book specifically, would look to the past, while the future of the games would look to the future of the games, obviously. Obviously, there's some things that come from the past that are influencing these games still, and there's some lore from the past that is kind of being tied up, but that's not what the purpose of the games is.
And so today we're going to be diving into that past, because that history is going to be the key to understanding Mixes, Sun and Moon, the truth behind Glamrock Bonnie, and even our new protagonist, Cassie. So hold on to your nearest handrail, theorists. This elevator is taking a one-way trip straight to the first floor. Or should I say we're taking a trip straight to the first lore? I could say that, but I probably shouldn't. That's a really terrible joke. Anyway, let's start off by talking about our new protagonist, Cassie. Even though we spend a whole game with her, we ultimately don't learn all that much about her. Basically, we learn two things.
We learn more than we did Gregory,
she's got some real
if we don't include Tails and the CDs. She does have very bad luck with vents, yes. Yep.
Vent is creaky. I really hope
She just jinxed it.
Look, no more vents. Every single time I get in one, it breaks or something jumps out at me.
We also know that no one showed up for her birthday party.
Have you booked your party? I'm sure your friends will show up this time.
That was sad.
No one except for Gregory,
Yeah,
which is
Gregory.
why she's so determined to save him. It's kind of cute. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot else about her. In fact, in an odd twist, we actually learn more about her dad than we do about her.
A fast wrench. It's just
I don't think we learn more
It's
about
not
him,
just in
but
random
we
throwaway
do learn a
lines either.
decent amount.
Thanks to the AR collectibles found throughout the game, we get a ton of information about Cassie's father. That her dad used to collect old Freddy and Friends lunchboxes. That Bonnie was his favorite character. That he refused to tell Cassie why Bonnie got replaced. And notice how every line describing him is written in the past tense, implicitly telling us that her dad is no longer around.
I've said this before, but I don't think that really means that he's dead. Like I said in previous videos, I'm not saying that he's not dead. He very well may be. He probably is, honestly. But I don't think that referring to him in the past tense in these situations means that he is. Because if you really look at what he's saying, Dad wouldn't tell me why they replaced Bonnie, and my dad used to collect these. Bonnie was my dad's favorite. Since the Pizzaplex is shut down at this point, him having an opinion on these things or collecting those things or talking about Bonnie wouldn't really mean that much, because they could have just been, because if the Pizzaplex is already closed, then the Pizzaplex was in the past. So why would it matter for him to tell her what happened to Bonnie? Or the fact that he used to collect them, it could just be that he doesn't anymore. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not saying that the dad isn't dead. I'm just saying that this isn't really definitive proof that he is.
Him is written in the past tense, implicitly telling us that her dad is no longer around. There is a lot in here. It would be fine if she just offhandedly mentioned her dad once, but the fact that Steel Wool has put multiple references in here means that this character has to be important in some way. But how?
Yeah.
And more importantly, why? why? Well, for Cassie to say that her Faz wrench is just like her dad's makes it pretty darn obvious that he not only worked for Fazbear Entertainment, but he was also a technician.
Yep,
Throughout
obviously.
the years, we've encountered a handful of technicians, mostly in the books. They're usually adjusting rides, fixing animatronics, nothing too exciting. However, there is one set of technicians that has gone long forgotten in the game series.
Sister Location?
That's right. Way back in Sister Location, we got to see actual humans in this series, only for them to quickly get Sayori'd out of the picture. Heck, we even got to hear these guys.
Just seems like these things can't go a day without breaking down.
Now, I'm not saying that Cassie's dad is one of the two men that we hear.
Yeah, they
talking
died
about
way
the
earlier than
endings,
Cassie could have been
connections
born.
to Sister Location, plus the
And
trailer for
way earlier than the Pizzaplex would have opened. So there's no way that dad would be Cassie's dad, or that technician would be Cassie's dad. I'm just saying, like, I know that that's not what he's saying. I'm just saying that yeah, that can't work.
Help Wanted 2, featuring the Sister Location elevator and an electric panel like the ones that we see throughout Ruin. It all leads me to believe that her father was one of these sorts of technicians. One of the technicians that worked as a part of Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals. In fact, I suspect that he's the one we'll be playing as in that new game, Help Wanted 2.
I did have that
later
thought
this
too.
year.
I think
The
that's
trailer
possible.
says,
Welcome back for another week of career fulfillment and minimal social interaction.
I still am of the belief that I don't think that Help Wanted 2 will be a game that is like a real event. I think it would probably be a game with a bunch of mini games like the first Help Wanted. It may not be. There's a very good chance that it's not. I just think that it probably will be. We'll probably find out within the next few days because of the PAX West thing, which I think starts tomorrow, but I don't know if the FNAF panel is tomorrow or if it's like one of the other dates. There's 4 days that at PAX West, so we could be finding out within the next 4 days. But I don't think that as of now, I don't really think that Help Wanted 2 will be just its own event. I think that it's probably just going to be a VR game again. Because the biggest reason I say that is because it's called Help Wanted 2. If they wanted to name, if they wanted it to not be anything like Help Wanted, then there's no reason they should call it Help Wanted 2. Like they call it Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted 2. Why not just call it Five Nights at Freddy's VR blah 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 Balloon Circus or whatever you think it's gonna be about? Like, that's just an example, not a prediction. I'm just saying that I don't think that it being called Help Wanted 2 makes a whole lot of sense if it's not Help Wanted 2. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like I said, it very well may not be. But I don't think that it very well may not be a game, but I do think that it will be. Cassie, that doesn't prevent Cassie's dad from being the player, though. As I said in a previous video, it's possible that since that thing is in the elevator, it's possible that there's like Faz Wrench tasks in the game that is kind of like a simulation for the technicians to get to know how to like use the Faz Wrenches and stuff, and it would also allow them to like just play the game and test it like they did in Help Wanted 1, right? So that's kind of my current belief, but like I said, it may be confirmed and debunked or neither within the next few days. We'll see.
Clearly, this is someone who's been down here before, and the facility in the game is working and operational. Notice the lack of yellow danger tape found at the bottom of the elevator shaft. We're going to be joining him for a few days on the job, which in turn should give us the backstory for the events that we're seeing play out during the ending of Ruin. Maybe even witnessing the moment that they had to seal up the Mimic. In fact, I'll take it one step further.
I don't really think
this
so.
This one is a long shot, but I suspect that he and Cassie might wind up united down there in the bunker at the end of all of this. You see, even though Cassie speaking about her father in the past tense implies that he's dead, I don't think that that's actually the case. I think he just went missing. Look at these two item
okay.
descriptions.
That makes sense.
The first is for the AR
Could be.
Bonnie mask, which reads, "What happened to you?" You might interpret that
I know
to
what
be,
he says here.
happened to you, Glamrock Bonnie, but that's not true. First, this is an AR mask of the original Bonnie. It's a mask first seen in Help Wanted 1 as part of the Trick or Treat minigame. It actually far predates the Pizzaplex. But secondly, and more importantly, Cassie actually knows the truth about what happened to Glamrock Bonnie. She knows that it was Monty Gator who eliminated him from the picture. In a later item description, this time for the AR Glam Monty plush, the description reads, "It's hard to look at. Why? Why would the only Monty item that Cassie can collect in the entire game be so hard to look at?" Well, it's because she knows what he did. She knows that Monty's guilty, violent, responsible for trashing Glamrock Bonnie, and as a result, Cassie has a hard time looking at him the same way again.
I don't think that's what that means. I don't know what it means, but the fact that it literally says in another description that her dad wouldn't tell her what happened to Bonnie indicates that she has no idea what happens to Bonnie and only finds out later when she actually, like, deactivates the staff bots. But it's questionable whether it's actually canon that she actually does that or not. Obviously, Bonnie's actually there, and the crime scene is canon. But her finding it, that's debatable whether or not that's canon. Either way, if she does find Bonnie, before that, she has no idea what happens to Bonnie. I don't think thinking Monty's hard to look at means that it's hard to look at the character that destroyed her dad's favorite, because she knows. I doubt she knows.
So wait, if the line "What happened to you" isn't about Glamrock Bonnie, then who is it about?
It probably just is
her
about
dad.
Bonnie
She
because it's Bonnie.
disappeared one day and
It
they
could
don't
also
know
be about
where
her dad,
or why.
yeah.
That's why she refers to him in the past tense. But that then leads us to another question. Why is she reminded of him with that particular item? The Bonnie mask. Just because Bonnie was his favorite? No. I suspect
Probably.
it's because her father wore that Bonnie
Yeah,
mask.
I know
And
what he
not
says
only did
here.
He wear it, he wore it during the single most infamous scene
Bite
in
of
the
83.
entire franchise, the Bite of 83.
Was that the bite of 87?
No,
No.
Mark, no, it wasn't. My theories are the only valid theories. You go lick a stick. I'm saying that Cassie's dad is the Bonnie bro.
Bro, I think you mean bully. I've heard this theory before. In the comments of my my video on Bonnie, on what was the theory? My theory on Cassie's dad. In the comments of that video, a lot of people a few people mentioned that they think that Cassie's dad is the Bonnie bully. That entirely is possible. There's theories that the Bonnie bully is, or not the Bonnie bully, that Cassie's dad is Michael, and I think that's also possible. There's a decent amount of evidence for it. The problem is him liking Bonnie, right? You'd think that he would hate Bonnie considering his dad was dressed up as a version of Bonnie and he hates his dad. And also Foxy, it could be Foxy is his favorite, but also that might be associated with trauma. And so I think Freddy and Chica are probably the only ones that like would be his favorite, but probably not Chica because nobody likes Chica. Just kidding, I like Chica, but not as much as the others. But I will say that I don't think that Mike's dad is or that Mike is Cassie's dad. I think it's possible though. But I think that I think that Cassie's dad is like just his own character, and maybe we'll see more of him in the future. But I think the idea of the Bonnie bully being Cassie's dad, it doesn't need to be the case, I don't think, but it also doesn't need to not be the case. Like if if Cassie's dad is a different character, if he's not Mike, if he's just like his own character here, then him being the Bonnie bully doesn't really take away anything from the story. It adds just a little bit, but it doesn't add a whole lot. It's just like a kind of cool way of tying back to the old lore, but I don't think it's really necessary. I will say though that Bonnie mask being what ties to her dad is probably because, like, I think that does make sense in the way that in Curse of Dreadbear we obviously see that mask. That mask is we first see in Curse of Dreadbear, and in Curse of Dreadbear there's a lot of connections to the Bite of 83 and the Bite victim and stuff. So if we see that mask there and it's tied to Cassie's dad and it's tied to the Bite of 83, then it could tie Cassie's dad to the Bonnie bully. I think that's valid. I just don't think that there's like a whole lot of evidence for it besides that, but that's decent evidence. I think it's fair.
Now, that at first might seem like a stretch, but again, remember what prompts the memory of her father, an old mask of the original Bonnie, just like Bonnie Bro wore on that fateful day all those years ago. What's more, notice what's missing from all these collectibles. You have a Bonnie mask and a Foxy mask, but no Freddy, no Chica mask. It's suspicious, right? Like, why? Why would Steel Wool include such a random and, more importantly, incomplete collection of memorabilia? It's clearly them trying to tell us something, that this mask is connected to the Foxy mask, the one that Michael wore during the Bite of 83.
Yeah, maybe.
Cassie's dad is clearly established to be a massive fan of the Freddy's franchise. One of the collectibles in Ruin are these cute little Freddy and Friends lunchboxes that we're told he used to collect. Now, Freddy and Friends was a cartoon series created by Steel Wool to help promote the release of Security Breach a couple years ago. It was animated in the style of old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, similar to things like Scooby-Doo, Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, all shows that actually started in the late 60s but remained popular throughout the 70s and the 80s. Dates that very nicely line up with Fredbear's Family Diner being open. And that's not all the proof we have here. Notice how these lunchboxes
I think they're more
classic
so
metal design with
around
handle on
the
top.
Freddy's
They're
era,
very
but-
similar to designs that we saw popular for kids' lunchboxes that existed between the 50s and the 80s. But here's the thing, we don't even need to go as far as masks and lunchboxes and cartoons. Pull up Cassie, pull up Bonnie, bro. Can you guess where I'm going with this? Can you? If only there were a way that I could just, I don't know, just visualize the design similarities between these two characters. How could I do it? Oh, I know. Hey, editors, do you reckon you could whip up something for me? Maybe something that connects the red shirt, blue shorts, brown hair, maybe the darker skin tone of these two characters? Yes! Beautiful! It's a work of art. Yes, the resistance. I mean, really, what more proof do you need of this one? But that then brings us back to the question of why.
I like how he's like making fun of the people that made fun of him
just
for
an
it.
Easter egg, a random reference to a past character? I don't think that's it. For 9 years now, FNAF has been the story of one family, the Aftons. This was their tale. Their lives, their mistakes, their deaths, their resurrections, all of it culminating in that FNAF 6 fire. But with the introduction of characters like Bonnie Bro as Cassie's father, we're being told that we need to widen our scope, not just focus on the Aftons, but rather to those around them. I still believe FNAF 1 through 6 is the Afton story, but this new era of FNAF, it's about how the actions of the Aftons during their story affected the people around them. The ripple effects, the collateral damage. Bonnie Bro was just a kid who grew up loving Bonnie, loved watching the show made by his best friend.
Bonnie was the
dad.
creepiest
But
one
when
in that thing.
Friend Michael Afton roped him into a prank that went horribly wrong, he never lived it down. He went on to study robotics and become a technician so that it would never happen again. And ruined.
I will say that it does add more depth to like those characters, because Michael obviously went on to become, well, the protagonist of the series, and he was the bully. He did it to like atone for his mistakes. There's a theory that that Jeremy Fitzgerald is actually the Freddy bully, since he wears a Freddy mask, and Jeremy in FNAF 2 wears a Freddy mask. And Scott has said in the past that he wants characters to have a reason to come here. So it would seem like Jeremy does have like an actual motivation, and if it was because he was part of the Bite of 83, that would add up. The Bonnie bully being important now would also make sense, as he's also kind of atoning for his sins. And that only leaves the Chica bully. I'm not saying that all of this is true, by the way. I'm just saying that there are theories that exist. I'm just saying, so it's just possible. The Chica bully, they don't do anything so far, at least. So maybe they'll do something in the future. Probably not, but we'll see. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's interesting to mention, because of just like all of them atoning for the Bite of 83 in some way is kind of cool, in my opinion.
Just keeps on digging up the past, because now I want to talk about arguably the most confusing character
Eclipse.
across the entire franchise, Eclipse. But first, I need to tell you about
I
something
don't
else that
think
has a
that's
long
true.
history. In general, Sun and Moon, they just don't work. They're a court jester, which makes sense inside of a castle-themed daycare, but
Yeah.
not in the whole 80s-tastic, futuristic pizzaplex. So where did this thing come from? Well, underneath this terrifying mask is a set of robotic teeth. And those aren't just any teeth, they're made to move independently. Now, that might not seem like that important of a design feature, but believe me, it is. There's only one other
the
character
Mimic.
with teeth like
He already
that,
mentioned
and it's
that,
the
but-
Mimic. Now take another look at Eclipse's design. It's a scrawny design with arms and torso that are basically just long metal rods with springs wrapped around them. And when you take a look at the back of the head, you'll see a circuit board just there, out in the open. The design feels simple, rudimentary, very bare
Yeah,
bones.
'cause of the
just like
stage
Mimic,
show.
who's made up of old parts from industrial machines. Two animatronics made from the
It was
same
just for a
basic
stage show.
shapes and parts. Now, am I saying that Eclipse is a mimic? No. But what I am saying is that these animatronics seem to come from the same time period. A time period that predates practically everything that we've seen in this franchise. How early are we talking about here? Well, for the answer, again, I turn your attention to the AR collectibles. Well,
Before he goes on to say all this stuff, first of all, I want to say that the Mimic is in the 80s. Second of all, I want to say that we learn in the books that the daycare attendant was made for a stage show, and that Fazbear Entertainment just eventually like took it. But it had like a split personality, and they couldn't really get rid of that, so they just tried to make sure that all the lights would stay on, but then that didn't work, obviously. So that's the origin of the daycare attendant. So it could have been from early in the timeline. We just don't know for sure. But I will say that I think that the daycare attendant probably does use parts from like a Mimic design, not like the Mimic, probably like a Model 2 or something. One that's like specifically made kind of for the daycare attendant, just so that it could like, what am I trying to say here? So that it could like basically just be equipped with that tech, the Fazbear tech, so that it could be tied into the systems and stuff like that. I think that idea works, and I think it's like, I think that it makes sense with the teeth, considering the Mimic in the epilogues had a replaced head. That indicates that it was probably replaced with a Mimic Model 2, since Mimic Model 2s did exist. And since the Mimic Model 2, and so if the Mimic Model 2 exists, then, and the teeth are the same as the daycare attendant, it's probably like a sort of Mimic Model 2 kind of design that's used for the daycare attendant equipped with it. It doesn't. I don't think it always had it. I think it was just equipped with it because in Bobby Dots Part 1, when we learn about all this stuff about the daycare attendant, like its origin about the stage show and stuff, I think it's mentioned that Fazbear Entertainment does all like the proper adjustments and stuff and equips it with like their own technology. So it makes a lot of sense to me that it would be equipped with a sort of mimic kind of endoskeleton.
And through the game, I just couldn't shake how random the collection was. I've talked about this before. A Foxy and Bonnie mask partnered with a Sun and Moon mask. Where's Freddy and Chica? A similar thing happens with the golden plushies. You got Sun Moon, Foxy, Bonnie, Baby, and Glamrock Freddy. So weird assortment, but again, there's no Chica. Or you got the pinatas. There's just 3 of them. Sun Moon and Bonnie. Not labeled Glamrock Bonnie, just Bonnie. It's almost like the game is trying to tell us something with all these random groupings and which animatronics are
It is
present
Glamrock
where.
Bonnie,
And
though.
I suspect that what we're actually seeing here are the eras of the franchise and the key players that existed in each one. And the one who came first, Sun and Moon. You'll notice that of all the collectibles, there are 2 that are visibly unique relative to all the others. A collection of 2 masks that stand out from the rest. The comedy mask and the tragedy mask. They have no eye or mouth holes. They're not even colored. And the fact that they're labeled comedy and tragedy and not Sun and Moon tells us that these weren't just any masks, they were old theater masks. You're probably familiar with these things. The laughing and crying masks. Well, you see, the tradition of theater masks actually originates in ancient Greek theater. The first plays evolved from rituals that involved masks, so it was natural for actors to wear masks that represented these heightened emotions that their characters were feeling. And while I don't...
Yeah, that was because of like how big like the stages were and how many people were like in the kind of auditorium thing. So it's kind of hard to see like facial expressions, so they use the masks just to like make sure that everybody could tell the kind of emotion that they were feeling.
I don't think that Sun and Moon date back
I learned that in
nearly
drama
that
class.
far. I do suspect that these masks were actually Afton's first creations. For years, we've been left to speculate about a time that
doubt
came
it,
before Fredbear's
but maybe.
Family Diner. And I did my best in the Ultimate Timeline to piece together a plausible narrative for what would bring Afton to create Fazbear based on the evidence that we had available. But I think that these AR collectibles are Steel Wool's way of telling us that journey. Look at the evolution that's present here. Comedy and tragedy masks. They're the first. They're part of some theater or vaudeville-style sideshow. Then you go to Sun, Moon, and Bonnie pinatas. A third new character gets added into the mix. Afton's character, the Bunny. Then there are 4 masks. Still Sun and Moon, then Bonnie, and then Foxy. There's no Freddy or Chica because they're not here yet. They didn't join the band, as it were, until William and Henry started working together. It's then, and only then, when Henry brings his barnyard animals to the table, Chica, Pigpatch, Happy Frog, that we see the Lunchbox crew develop. The core 4 that we've known and loved since FNAF 1. And then the AR plushies are just everyone who's currently relevant inside of the Pizzaplex, i.e. every character that's been created. As for the golden plushies, I'm not quite sure what they're meant to be. That one remains to be seen. Regardless,
I don't think that it would be spanning the timeline because I feel like that would be kind of random. I think it's just showing the characters. But what I do think, those comedy and tragedy masks were also in Security Breach. So the fact that they're in Ruin doesn't really mean anything unless they mean something in Security Breach, in which case, why are we looking at them at the collection in Ruin rather than the one in Security Breach? So I don't really think that really means that much. But what I will say is that I made my own video on Fredbear's Family Diner and how like the old costumes and stuff tie into that. So I feel like that kind of idea works a little bit better in terms of like the origins of Fazbear Entertainment kind of. So that's just what I think. You guys, you're free to disagree, but I recommend watching the video because I think the conclusion actually makes a lot of sense. But I'll continue with the video now.
Progression of character development would explain why Afton's solo adventure after the closure of Freddy's was circus-themed. He's had himself a jester and jester-adjacent characters for years. Though, I would like to point out very strongly that a jester and circuses are not one and the same thing. A clown is not a jester, and a jester is not a clown who works at a circus. A jester is someone who entertains royalty, a king and a queen. He does not work under a big top coming out of a small car. And don't even get me started on the fact that everyone's teasing this new game carnival themed, which again, carnivals are not circuses and circuses are not jesters. You're all just trying to retroactively fit them into these themes where they don't technically go, which honestly probably tells you more about the lore than you would expect. It's actually...
I like how this all ties into like FNAF's theories. But I also like the fact that he says you're trying to fit these themes where they don't technically go. When a lot of people would say that he's doing that. But anyway.
Smart world building. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. Anyway, we know thanks to the Tales from the Pizzaplex that a Jester costume was present all the way back when the original Mimic was made. Quote, Dominic's flashlight glow picked out a brown Freddy Fazbear costume, a yellow Chica costume, a Foxy costume, a Bonnie costume, and a couple bright pink and yellow-green Court Jester costumes. And it's clear that the Jester idea persisted throughout all of Afton's plans, because in the epilogues of the Tales from the Pizzaplex book, we also read this, quote again, as soon as Lucia's hand slipped into the Jester costume sleeve, she recoiled and snatched her hand back. What is it? Kelly asked. It's okay, I just almost got into a spring-lock suit is all. The Jester costume developed from just a normal costume into a spring-lock suit. Suits, which were definitely used in Circus Baby's Pizza World.
Try not to wiggle, though.
Mm-hmm.
You're inside something that
That makes sense,
from my old
mostly.
pizzeria.
Kind of contradicts what he said about the circus and Chester's not matching, but sure.
Keep the spring locks wound up.
The spring-lock suit in the epilogue also has a mask that matches up almost perfectly with our daycare attendant. One final quote. Lucia stepped up to the costume, suppressing a shiver at the Jester's leering, toothy grin and its wide eyes. And the best part is, thanks to the Mimic, I think I can pinpoint exactly when Circus Babies started and eventually fell through. I decided to look a little deeper into the room just before the Mimic chase. It's an old room, filled with shattered security nodes, propane tanks, and the Mixis hub, all connected to a computer which we can use to free the Mimic. Now, the majority of people have been assuming that Mixis is Gregory's doing. His backpack is down there after all, and the Mimic has his walkie-talkie, but something just didn't add up to me. The computer controlling the Mixis server is way older than any of the other technology that we see throughout the Pizzaplex. We've got camera galleries, modern office spaces, even portable security camera viewing stations, but this
That's a lie. This exact computer is used in the parts and service room in the Pizzaplex.
Important system for keeping the killer robot under lock and key is using only an old CRT monitor? Yeah, no, that doesn't feel right to me. And this computer isn't just any computer, its design matches those from the 1980s. Specifically, it reminds me of the IBM PCJR, computers that were released in...
I think Matt just forgot about parts and service.
Mixis has been around for a long time, trying to keep the Mimic locked away, but why? Well, I think I have an answer to that. An answer that also gives us an explanation for why Mixis shows itself.
I doubt
as a
Mixis was
rabbit.
made that
See,
long
I don't
ago.
think Afton only copied physical characteristics from the Mimic to make animatronics like Eclipse. I think he also took its software to speed up his creation process. I think that this was one of the ways he was able to populate Circus Baby's Pizza World with the Funtime animatronics. As John from the channel FNAF has been quick to point out time and time again, almost all of the Funtimes have themselves a very specific function. They have the ability to mimic voices. Just like John, I too believe that
Only
Afton
Freddy
got
does.
that functionality from the Mimic program itself. After the tragic death of his son during the bite of 1983, Afton needed a backup plan, something that he could build fast, just in case the Fazbear name was permanently tarnished. So he went back to the Mimic program and made a copy of its software, transferring it into his newest creations, hoping that they would be able to learn routines much faster. He could then give them stomach hatches and other features to help him capture kids, all to forward his experiments in bringing his son back to life. Everything looked like it was going according to plan, but sadly, we know what happened. His daughter got too close to one of his traps and was killed. Afton was obviously devastated by this and shut the whole thing down. The Mimic program had failed spectacularly. He sealed up the old location with concrete.
No, it didn't. It did exactly what he wanted.
A new program that would keep the Mimic locked away permanently. A system wrapped in his signature purple, guarded by the one creature that he could trust, the rabbit Bonnie. And so Mixis was born. That then gives us two separate Mimics, one inside Baby and the Funtimes, ready to be collected by Fazbear Entertainment and used to create VR experiences, and the other still trapped down in the basement. This would actually go a long way to explain a weird moment from the middle of Ruin, where Helpy and the Mimic argue with one another.
What happened to it?
I will say I do think that there's multiple Mimics. I don't know if Afton would have been the one to create Mixes. I do feel like that since Mixes is tied to the Vanny security program, it was probably the doing of Gregory and Vanessa working together. It might not have been, it might have been Afton, but I'm not really sure if that makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think that that Mixes would have been created that long ago, though. Whoops. There. I do think that there's multiple different pieces
They're
of the
both
Mimic program,
AI,
though.
So what exactly is going on here? Well, it's two versions of the same program finally in the same place after so long.
Yeah.
Helpy is the Mimic program in the network, while the Mimic talking to Cassie is the physical Mimic down in the basement. It's possible, it's confusing, and I suspect it might just be right. Guess all in a day's work for
I can
FNAF
agree with that
lore,
part,
right?
yeah.
But hey, that's just
and the boys
a
pulling up to
theory.
school.
A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Me and the boys pulling up to school on Monday. That's gonna be me in 6 days when I'm starting school. Yay. I'm so excited. That was an interesting theory. I'm not really sure how I feel about it entirely. I do think that the Bonnie bully part, it makes sense. I don't really 100% agree with it, but I think it makes a decent amount of sense. Cassie's dad being missing, maybe. What else did he talk about? The daycare attendant. I don't think the daycare attendant would have been that early in the timeline. I feel like it would have probably been like from maybe like the early 2000s or something. I feel like it's just what it was said to be in the books. It was just like a stage show, right? So it wasn't like high budget or anything. It was just a random character that they used for the stage show. I'm surprised that he didn't mention the books at all in this video, at least in terms of like the what's it called, the daycare attendant, like with Bobby Doss Part 1 explaining its origin in its entirety. I would think that he would have mentioned it, but I guess not, especially since it's kind of important, but whatever. I do find the Cassie's dad and Bonnie bully like comparison really funny. I like it. I like it in this video. He just makes fun of a lot of people. I do think the theory is interesting. I don't agree entirely, but I don't think it's bad in any way. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you like this theory? Do you think he's probably right? Let me know in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.